All right, head butts and slow blinks. Good people, how are you doing? First, I want to welcome and thank you and welcome everybody for coming out. My name is Sterling TrapKing Davis. I go by TrapKing because of my nonprofit, TrapKing Humane Cat Solutions, that I started back in 2017 with a focus on TNR, which is trap, neuter, and return, and community cat care. So I wanted to speak with you all about some things as far as diversity and inclusion in animal welfare, as well as, for those that don't know my crazy cat loving self, let you know a little bit more about me. Uh, Now, I'll be going through these slides. Thank you. That was amazing. The communication is a little different. You might hear me say next slide or meow, something like that, either or to go to the next slide. But again, like I said, my name Sterling Davis. Growing up, as you can see here in some of these young pictures of me, this second one over here, I was doing what I usually do, probably cutting up. Supposed to have been in class outside, uh, doing whatever. I've always been someone that's been a little outspoken, eccentric, different. And growing up, I loved animals, probably mainly cats, but I grew up in an area and a time where it was like unheard of for somebody like myself, a young black man, to like cats. Even most animals it was almost weird to like animals at a young age like that, but especially cats. Cats was a big deal. Meow. I served in the military, and this is a big part about I think this is a big thing as far as my relationship with animals and living a life of service, because um the military is I did that because I wanted to travel. I wanted to live a life of service. I wanted to help. And that was something that was all in me. It started when I was younger, as far as loving animals, cats. I always had it in me to live a life of service and help like that. One of the things, like I said, growing up, that was the same way in the military, that wasn't considered cool, was cats. But as you can see right here, this fluffy buddy of mine named Rick James, as soon as I got out of the Navy, I went and got me a cat. Rick James was the first cat that I actually went out on my own and got. At the time, I didn't know much of anything about cats. I knew he was a Persian Himalayan. He was gorgeous. He was smart. I wanted him, but I didn't know as far as feeding, rescue, decline. A lot of that stuff I just didn't know about, and that's why a lot of what I do now, meow. A lot of what I do now is based off of that relationship that I had with Rick James early on. I didn't I didn't really know what the right food was. I didn't know if I should declaw or not. A lot of information wasn't available, even with me being somebody that considered myself a cat lover. Next slide. So when I with Rick James, I I think the food, like I said, the information, a lot of things, it wasn't available to me. This picture right here is a picture from me when I got into cat rescue and started learning a little more about cats, TNR, cat rescue, and again, seeing a lack of diversity in animal welfare. Next slide, please. This this is me full blown into animal welfare at this point. This is at an event that I went to, an adoption event that I had for cats. It was working with another group, and we walked down the runway to get the cats adopted. It was These two babies got adopted, and it was a big deal. I was really happy about it. Next slide. And so getting into TNR, community cat care. When I first started, and let me say this, I want to back up a little bit because I want to tell a story about TNR and how I got to where I am now, involved in all of this. So when I was doing this here, what you see, TNR, we trapped this cat, me and his buddy of mine, and this was a rough neighborhood that I was in. This was a predominantly black and brown community. And quickly, what I realized when I would go to these areas, one time I was returning the cats back to the colony after I've spayed, neutered, vaccinated, and after that, you return them back to their colony. So that prevents overpopulation and spreading disease. But one time I was taking cats back, and I was, I had my traps out, and I saw a couple gentlemen coming behind me. They were walking up, and I look back, and I'm like, man, they don't look so happy. Like, let me look back again, and they're getting closer. So I set the traps down, and I began to speak to them, and one of the things is they said to me instantly was like, "Hey, we know what you're doing. We see what you've been doing here, and a lot of these cats, a lot of what's happening is that you have organizations coming into these communities, putting tracking devices and diseases in the cats, and they're doing that to hurt our community." And I was just like, wow, like that's if that's what you believe, that's really bad. Like there's a big disconnect between the community and animal rescue, like especially cat rescue like that. So that was something that really touched me, and I think stuck me in that situation, because I not only educate my people on what was really happening, but I wanted to bridge that gap between the black community, black and brown communities, as well as the rescue community. So that was a real big moment in my life. Shout out to the gentleman that I talked to, if they anywhere around this. That was an awesome day. Next slide, please. And again, TNR, going running my mouth about me, but I did want to make sure that it's explained that TNR, Trap Neuter Return, is the humane alternative for death and euthanasia for stray and feral cat populations. It's a process where cats are gone out, like you saw in the traps in the earlier slide. We go out, we catch them in those traps. They don't hurt the kitties. They're not hurt. Nobody, no kitties hurt, but they're taken to low-cost spay and neuter clinics where they're spayed, neutered, vaccinated, and returned back to the colony. And like we see here in this slide, the socialized cats, the cats that are friendly, are the ones where we take out of the colonies and look to have them adopted and go to forever homes. That has been my thing. Like I love it. They say in cat rescue, once you get in, it's kind of like the mafia, because you stuck and you just can't get out. So that was me. I dove in heart first, and I love it. I'm still doing it to this day, every day, traveling around the world and in a crazy cat looking RV, educating and assisting on this. So it's something that is near and dear to my heart, as well as, again, bridging that gap between black and brown communities and animal welfare. Next slide, please. So racial diversity is super important. Like I said, in the story that I told earlier about the gentleman that was coming to question me about what I was doing and why I was doing it. Racial diversity is important because of that right there. Everyone has to be included if we're going to do better for our furry friends. Like in this picture, look at these babies. That's I love this picture. Next slide. So when we say celebrate diversity, I know I'll say this. I could tell you another one of my experiences with not really, well, diversity where it played a part, where it hurt. And like I said, you can you could get to a point to where, like I said, I've been in areas where I people don't look like me, or people do look like me. In any event, the best thing I think is to listen. Um, I've gotten out the RV, or going out, getting out of my van at the time, and I'm like, hey, you got to do this. You're doing this wrong. This cat needs to be over here. That cat's not ear tip. And a lot of times in rescue, a lot of us, we care, but we approach it like that. And I think in times, especially in what I do, dealing with the community, is good to show compassion to the people, not just the animals. And again, listen, try not to judge. I know when I first started out, it would be tough. I would see dogs tethered. to trees. I would see cats looking like they're not being tended to, and it would hurt. And instantly I'm like, oh my goodness, I have to tell them, I have to do this, I got to let them know that that's wrong. But it's not always the approach to come in with the waving finger, which a lot of times us in animal welfare we can do. Next slide please. So some tips dealing with it in every area, not just the TNR rescue in the community period, but some great tips that I've learned. Be yourself. Be yourself. I've had people, and this is kind of wild, but I've had people, volunteers that go a little outside themselves to try to make things comfortable. Then it gets uncomfortable. Like I've gone to neighborhoods to someone to tell me, hey, man, I voted for Barack. And I'm like, okay, I'm here rescuing cats. Why are we talking about that? Just be yourself. A lot of stuff, politics, religion, that stuff is not even needed. I tell my volunteers all the time when they have religious or political bumper stickers on their vehicles, kind of get away from that. We here for the fur babies and to help them. That's something that could get you away from that. And language barriers. Oh my goodness, language barriers. Expect them. It's gonna happen. I used to go out with actually cue cards, like little flashcards, and I would even put it on my merch on bags to have explanations in either different languages and or different ways to just explain the different communities on what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. But however you do it, you should always expect language barriers, know that it's gonna be there and be prepared to deal with them. Next. Oh yeah. And cultural bias. I one of the most popular biases that I grew up with, probably, uh it playing basketball sports. It was a movie called White Men Can't Jump. That was the biggest. That's like such a big cultural bias that in the sports, maybe the black guys jump higher, they run faster. That's a cultural bias. That's not necessarily true, none of it at all, but be aware of them going into a situation. That's based on how we grew up and what we may feel, but going into situations, you got to be aware of those biases and know that that's probably how we grew up. That's probably how it was delivered to us, but not necessarily true. Just like my manager, who I call my momager, Mary Tan, because she's Asian, a lot of people assume she's good at math. That's a cultural bias. We need to understand that when we approach it like that, that's not necessarily true. Be aware of them and know what it is when we're going in. The little things. Oh my. So I'll say this. I would, I was also challenged once with the question in a community where some of the people told me, hey man, you all come in here and you go straight to the animals, but you'll step over a homeless person or you'll walk past the young man selling water on the side of the highway, trying to make money to feed his family, but you go straight to the animals. And those things you want to notice, all the little things in order to connect with people like that. I mean, some of it, the way it is for some people and how they see it and what they're going through, it's a little bit different. So you want to notice the little things where you go. Be aware of your biases and prejudice, and notice the little things. Next slide, please. Now this is again why I say I love this. My people, I got shout out to my friends and family at Care, Companion and Animals for Reform and Equity. They helped me out with this slide. And equality. This right here is such a great example. You see, everybody is getting a crown. The lion, the big cat right here, he got a crown. Look at the little kitty over here. Please notice the ear tip. He is TNR. But the little kitty is equal, that they both have a crown. But the problem here is it's not fitting. It's not working out. But I mean, the big cat, he wearing his proud and strong. He doing his thing. But the little guy's like, okay, I got the crown, but what do I do with it? Next slide. So equity, that's the difference between equality. Before that slide, we saw that everybody had a crown, but that crown didn't fit. Equity is that crown fitting on everybody. And that's something that's real important to me in my work, because it's one thing to give the resources and give the information. And a lot of times we could just spew it out, but it's another thing to make sure that everybody gets a crown that fits them. And that's what equity is. As you can see, my ear tipped homie right there, he rocking his crown the right way now. Next slide. So communication is always key, always key. And then when I say communication, I say too, because listening is a big part of it. Again, that's something that I had to learn. I could go on forever and talk about what you should do, what you shouldn't do, how you got to do it. But a lot of part of communication is also listening. You have to be able to listen and hear what other people are saying. Be flexible. Be flexible. One of the things that I've learned is don't be so fast to disagree or react. Be a little flexible. Be able to bend a little bit. And I say that I can tell you another story um, where I had a situation with one of my volunteers, and somehow Michael Vick came up. And you know, Michael Vick, I most people are like, oh my God, they don't, animal people. Soon as you hear that name, it's a big sigh. It's not a positive thing. But that initial reaction right there kind of hurt what what we were trying to do. Me and my volunteer were in a neighborhood, and we were trying to communicate with people. And when the subject came up about Michael Vick, the reaction, everything, it kind of made things a lot uneasy. It made it hard to get focused on what we were there for, which is helping the animals. So be flexible with that. Sometimes you'll hear, see some stuff. Don't right away just judge and be like, that's wrong, that's it. No, be flexible and smile. Show them teeth. I always tell people, especially in a world of rescue, volunteering, uh, no matter if you whatever you're doing with your fur babies, they're here to make us happy. Volunteering, animal welfare, all these things should make us happy. So there's no reason why we shouldn't be smiling. And a smile could go a long way when you're communicating and talking to somebody. So yes, be flexible, get your smile on. Next slide. I would like to say again, thank you to everybody for coming out. It's real big to me. It's really important to me as someone in animal welfare, a black man who loves animals. And like I said, I want people to see that we care, that we can, and spread the education more, because unity, the more we work together, the more we come together, the stronger we are for one another, the better we are for our animals, our fur babies, and I think the better we'll do in the future.